Igual creo que es que la 18 está actuando con el apoyo y la
18th Street is acting with the support and collusion of certain police leaders and structures in the government. And MS-13 knows it.
Y la MS lo sabe.
Recently, on the podcast Tangente, Juan Francisco Solórzano Fopa, a former Guatemalan prosecutor and tax chief, accused upper echelons of the government of working in cahoots with the 18th Street gang. You might have heard of them as Barrio 18 in Guatemala. Days later, Fopa revealed that 20 top leaders of the gang had broken out of prison. All but one of them are still on the run. It seemed to be case in point. I'm Roman Gressier, the editor of El Faro English, and you're catching our weekly podcast, Central America in Minutes.
In Nicaragua, the house arrest of Daniel Ortega's brother
relates more to El Salvador and Honduras than to Guatemala. In the case of Guatemala,
they say globalism comes to die at CIPA, but in El Salvador, it's already dead.
Central America in Minutes on El Faro English.
For almost 2 months, Guatemalan authorities didn't make a peep about the escape of 20 gang leaders from a maximum security prison, Fraijanes II, facilitated by public officials. The silence was broken on October 11th, when the former prosecutor, Fopa, posted about it on social media. The Ministry of Governance, which oversees the police and prisons, confirmed the events 48 hours later.
No voy a evadir la realidad.
I'm not going to evade reality, nor do I intend to gloss over it. What happened is a very serious failure of the prison system. There's no valid explanation. It definitely shouldn't have happened.
That's Minister of Governance Francisco Jimenez at the press conference where he announced the dismissal of the director of the prison system and a prison warden, as well as the recapture of one of the 20 escapees and a reward of 3 million quetzales, that's about $391,000, for information leading to the capture of the others. Even the deputies of Raíces, a political party still in formation that split away from the now canceled ruling party Semilla, demanded that Jimenez hang his hat. It was as clear display as any of the growing rift between Arévalo and his former confidant, prominent legislator Samuel Pérez, as we identified in episode 36. Arévalo wasn't even in the country. He was in Europe on a diplomatic trip and hadn't said anything in public. 2 days later, Arévalo accepted Jimenez's resignation and dismissed 2 deputy ministers under pressure from many sectors. Some observers called it the worst crisis of Arévalo's 20 months in office. And that's saying a lot for an administration that survived a coup effort and faces constant deadlock with the high courts, Congress, and Attorney General. Guatemalan prisons are at 400% capacity, according to 2024 data. Last year, 100 guards were accused of smuggling illegal items. Between June and August 2025, guards were taken hostage in 7 riots, and one of them was killed. This year, an extortion center was also discovered in El Infiernito, or Little Hell, a prison along the Pacific coast. Following several prisoner transfers, homicides increased for the first time in 16 years. Last week, in what looked like a page torn from Bukele's playbook, Arévalo announced a new maximum security prison exclusively to hold gang members. According to the government, some 3,000 gang members are currently incarcerated, while another 9,000 members and collaborators remain at large. The Trump administration, which has positioned itself as a close ally of Arévalo, harshly condemned the escape of the 18th Street leaders. The news of their escape broke just 2 weeks after the U.S. government designated the gang as a foreign terrorist organization, alongside MS-13, Tren de Aragua, and a series of Mexican cartels, some of whom have a presence in Guatemala. Late last week, Arévalo tried to bounce back. He appointed a hard-nosed former judge, Marco Antonio Villeda, as his new minister. Villeda was an appellate judge for high-risk tribunals, handling major organized crime, corruption, and impunity cases, and ordering asset forfeiture of powerful Guatemalans. His nomination was applauded by anti-corruption groups and other prominent justice system operators, like exiled judge Erika Aifán. In Guatemala, where high courts themselves have been repeatedly accused of grand corruption and top judges are chased out of the country, eyebrows were raised last year when the Supreme Court transferred Villeda from his court. Now, Villeda will oversee the police and prisons. In a split vote, the Supreme Court granted him a 6-month leave from the bench on Wednesday. And former Minister Francisco Jimenez won't be in Guatemala for it all to unfold. He told newspaper Prensa Libre that he would stay to face any criminal charges brought against him following the prison break. I think it's important to face the accusations, Jimenez said. But by Thursday afternoon, he had already left the country. Tomorrow, October 25th, marks 1 year since the first episode of Central American Minutes. That's pretty awesome. Getting the regional news every week from El Faro English is free, but on the other hand, gathering it, not so much. If our reporting has made a difference for you, join our crowdfunding community at support.elfaro.net to help us translate Central America. Last, we turn to El Salvador. On October 7th, the Bukele-controlled legislature passed a new anti-money laundering law that in fact significantly loosens financial controls, as our colleague Andres Dimas reports. First, the law states that financial institutions like banks may not deny, quote, financial inclusion, that means bank accounts and credit, to individuals identified in journalistic articles, or even who have faced money laundering charges, without a separate review from the Bukele-controlled Attorney General's office. And it increases the amount of money that can be brought into the country without justifying its origin from $10,000 to $15,000. Now, the number of categories of companies and individuals required to report transactions has been reduced from 20 to 10. The regulation excludes all domestic and foreign companies and businesses, as well as domestic and international investors. Construction companies, exporters, private security companies, pharmaceutical companies, hotels, travel agencies, transport companies, remittance companies, business associations, and companies in which the state has a stake are exempt from reporting their operations. Companies and investors, both from El Salvador and other countries, are no longer required to report transactions. Attorney General Rodolfo Delgado voiced support for the new law. He said that under past legislation, bank accounts were arbitrarily frozen. Someone would get a digital newspaper to write a novela, and that novela would be used by compliance officials to exclude certain individuals, he said. El Faro revealed in October 2022 that, before Bukele illegally installed him as Attorney General, Rodolfo Delgado spent 2 years as a lawyer for an MS-13 collaborator accused of money laundering, who was acquitted months before Delgado's appointment. But while the Bukele regime loosens some controls, they're tightening others. The state has total discretion over who is subject to heavy taxation of foreign donations under the new Foreign Agents Law. Affected groups are already leaving the country. In recent weeks, amid a wave of exile to avoid imprisonment, the human rights organization Cristo Sal, digital outlet Gato Encerrado, and the Salvadoran Journalists Association are among those who closed up shop in El Salvador. Others have rolled the dice and decided to enroll as foreign agents. But at this point, nobody in El Salvador questions that it's Bukele, and Bukele alone, who owns those dice. One more thing before we go. Just a few weeks ago, you heard our episode that we co-published in partnership with Latino USA. From pregnancy to murder charge, living under a total abortion ban in El Salvador. Well, on Sunday, look out for the second episode from our stellar colleagues, this time turning to Guatemala, where a father and son separated on a lie by the US government have yet to be reunited 6 years later. Thanks for streaming Central American Minutes, written by Gabriel Labrador and me, Roman Gressier. All things sound design by Omnion. Find us wherever you do your streaming, and we'll be back later this weekend. Hasta pronto.